Hey everyone, Ryan here at eTrailer. Today on our 2022 Jeep Grand Cherokee WL new body, we're going to be showing you how to install the Curt Trailer Hitch Receiver. Before we get into that though, let's take a minute, we'll check this out and make sure it's going to work for you. So with these Jeeps, really capable SUVs, people do a lot of different things with them, pulling trailers around, using accessories, or even a little bit of both. And so for those of you that don't have a Jeep equipped with a factory trailer hitch, this is going to be a great option for you. It'll give you that attachment point you need to use those accessories or pull that trailer. Now, one of my favorite parts about this hitch is the fact that when you're not using it, you can take the removable door here, reinstall it, and you're not going to be able to see the trailer hitch at all. It's going to look completely factory and not even be able to tell that it's there, which kind of brings you to my next point. And this might sound kind of silly, but I do see it from time to time. If you've never pulled this door off, before you pick out a hitch, it's not a bad idea to drop it down because you might have a factory one already installed. The hitch is going to have a 2" by 2" opening, which is a good thing. It's a super common size, so a lot of different things will work with it. It is going to use the standard 5/8 size pin and clip. One doesn't come included with the hitch. You need one, not a huge deal. You can always grab it here at eTrailer. A lot of times too, if you end up buying a new accessory, they'll come with one. Just something to look out for there. And the safety chain openings are plate style. And even though they're on the smaller side, you still have enough room to use pretty much any size hook that your trailer might have on it. As far as the weight capacities go, the hitch is going to give us some pretty high numbers. Maximum gross tongue weight will be 750 pounds, which is the amount of weight pushing down on the hitch. And with that, you'll be able to use pretty much any size bike rack or cargo carrier, just to give you an example. For the maximum gross trailer weight rating, it's going to be 7,500 pounds. That's the amount of weight pulling on the hitch. That is the weight of the trailer plus anything that you might have in or on it. This can be used with the weight distribution system, which is a separate component. What happens when you use that, it'll keep your Jeep and your trailer level whenever you're towing it down the road. Pretty popular upgrade on enclosed trailers, campers, things of that nature. So if that's what you plan on doing, it might be worth checking that out. However, even with the weight distribution set up, the capacities are going to remain the same at 750 and 7,500. Now with all that in mind, I do always like to recommend, always a good idea just to grab your SUV's owner's manual. That way you can check in there and make sure that your Grand Cherokee can handle that amount of weight safely. We'll grab a couple of measurements now, and these will help us figure out what type of accessories will work best. If you go from the center of the hitch pin hole to the edge of the rear bumper, that's only going to be about 2.5 inches, which is really good. Shouldn't run into any issues here, but if need be, you can use that to help figure out exactly if any of those folding style accessories can be stored upright without hitting the back of your Jeep. And if we go from the ground to the top inside edge of the receiver tube opening, so I'm taking into account the lift that we're parked on here, that'll be about 23 inches. So sits pretty high up. And if you plan on pulling a trailer, chances are really good you'll need a ball mount with a drop in the shank. Probably around 6 inches would work well in most scenarios. Other than that, you can't really ask for too much more. The hitch is going to give us good capacities, good clearances. It's going to be able to sit behind the bumper and behind this removable panel, so can't really go wrong. As far as the installation goes, it's a little involved. You do have to remove the fascia, but it's really not too bad, believe it or not. I'm thinking if you're doing this at home in the garage or something, you can do it all standing up for the most part. You're not going to have to be rolling around on the ground and dealing with that type of thing. A word of advice too, if you're planning on doing trailer wiring, it'd be a great time to do it while the fascia is off, and that's exactly what we did. I installed the 4-way flat wiring for our neighbor here. He's wanting to pull a trailer around. And I say it because with the fascia off, you have a lot more room to run wires and everything else. So just something to think about. But if this is something you don't have a place to work on it or the time or anything like that, I definitely understand you can always use our dealer locator network, and hopefully that can help you find a shop that can help you out with this. But if you're going to tackle this on your own, feel free to hang around. We'll go ahead and get started on it now. To begin our installation, we're going to be working underneath the back of our Jeep, and we'll start by removing a total of 4 fasteners along this bottom edge. We'll have 2 on each side. Those fasteners are going to have a 10mm head, and from this point on, whatever we do to one side of our vehicle, we'll also do to the other side because it'll be set up the same way. We can move to our wheel wells now, and since we're going to be working in this area, I did take some painter's tape and just put it along the seam so we don't accidentally scratch anything up. But we have our wheel well liner, and there's 4 8mm head fasteners in there. So we'll work our way around here and get them all removed. Let's get that last one out. You can take the liner, peel it back out of the way, and then that'll allow us to get access to this electrical connector right here. And we'll unplug it. There's a white tab that you can push down on. Sometimes some tabs are too tight to do with your fingers, so you can take a flathead, kind of gently pry it that way, and then you can push down on that white tab, and that will release the connector. We're going to need to unsnap this trim piece, and so if you come in from the back here, there's several push pin style fasteners, and you can kind of squeeze the ends in while you're working this piece up to get it pulled away from our Jeep. You get your trim to about halfway, I guess, and I put a little piece of foam or rag or something in here just to keep that pulled away. But the reason we did that is to get access to this fastener here, which needs to come out, and it's going to have a 10mm head. You can open up your rear hatch now, and down here in the corner there's a little plastic cover. Just carefully take a pick or a flathead screwdriver to pry it open, and that'll expose another 10mm head bolt. We're going to remove our taillights. We'll have these plastic covers. You can just take a trim tool or something like that, just kind of pry them out. There's a couple of plastic clips holding it in place. And then the light is secured with a Torx bit fastener. It's a T30. We'll pull that out. And we should be able to just kind of grab our light and pull it almost at a 45-degree angle away from our vehicle. And we'll unplug it. There's a red tab here. Pull back on that and push down on the center of that tab to separate it. Set our light off to the side for now. To get the fascia off, you can start at the corner by the wheel well. I like to start though in the tail light pocket because it's usually really tight right here. In our case, ours is pretty loose. It looks like, just seeing the overspray, the white paint, and a little bit of damage. It looks like someone's been in here before doing some body work, but nonetheless, you know, what you can do is kind of just start to peel up on these and release it from those tabs, and kind of go from there. Like I said, it usually just makes it easier to get undone, especially when you start to unsnap this part. So once you get to this point on each side, then if you can have someone help you with this part, it makes it a lot easier, but you could start to work this piece free. Just unsnaps, and then we should be pretty well free here. A lot of times the bumper will have snaps built into it, and they're relatively tight. So if you just kind of work it back and forth, eventually we'll get it to unsnap here. And if not, if it's really fighting us, we can always try to get a tool in here and pry it out. What I found, it's super tight, so take your time. If you could take a screwdriver or pick or something and push down on the white tab while you're pulling back, it starts to work free there. And once you get one or two of them going, you know, the rest are much easier. So now, of course, I snap back in up here. Now we can get this completely removed and set off to the side for now. On each side of our vehicle, on the bottom of the frame, there's this exhaust hanger here, and there's a 13mm head bolt. Go ahead, pull that out, and then just kind of pull this down and away from the frame rail. We can get our bumper beam removed. So there's 3 bolts on each side of our vehicle. We'll have one on the bottom here. That's a 21mm size socket is what I'm using. And on the other side, I got them all out, but I did leave one in there hand tight. That way this just doesn't fall out. So I'm gonna support it. Pull out this last remaining bolt over here. We should be able to just slide this out and away from our Jeep. The way our hitch is going to work, it's going to slide into the frame rail and replace our bumper beam. Now there's several different attachment points here, and the ones that we're going to be using, I marked in white. So those are going to line up with the existing holes there that our bumper beam was utilizing, right? We have this one on the bottom, and then there's a smaller square. With this, they give you a thinner carriage bolt. That'll go through. You know, when we have this in place and everything, it'll go through like that, and that's where our exhaust is going to bolt back up to, that hanger there. For the rest of these, just kind of give you a visual, which I'll show you in a minute as well. The rest of them, you're going to take carriage bolts, and they're going to go through and lock into place that way. So now that we kind of got an idea on what's going on, we'll get this in the frame rails. This will just slide into place here, and we'll get everything pretty close. And usually you can just do this inside one by hand. I kind of reach in there. That way there's at least a bolt passing through, and the hitch isn't going to slide out while we're working on the rest of our hardware. For all the large carriage bolts, we're going to put on one of the large flange nuts. I'll just get this started hand tight. And then if you tilt the hitch up, you know, the rest of them will line up here. I'm able to take the bolts and put them in by hand. But if you're having a hard time, you know, reaching your hand all the way in there, the kit does come with what's called the fish wire. And to use it, you can take the coiled end of it, put it through like this, and you're going to want it to come out of the back side of the Jeep. You can take the carriage bolt, thread that on, and then pull it into position that way. So get that started there. Then I'll get our small carriage bolt in place for our exhaust here. We'll get all the large bolts snugged down now using a 3/4 inch socket. We're going to come back with a torque wrench now and tighten down the hardware to the amount specified in our instructions. For this bolt, you'll take your exhaust hanger, Run it up into position, and a lot of times, you know, that bolt will end up getting pushed up, so you might have to reach your hand in the hitch opening and hold it down. You're just going to take this flange nut and thread it on. Since it is kind of buried up there, if you take a 1/2 inch socket, put the nut in there, it makes it a little bit easier to get started. I'll get that going by hand here. Then we'll come back and snug it down. We'll switch out for a torque wrench and get it completely tightened. If all you're doing is a trailer hitch, you can reinstall the fascia the opposite way that you removed it. But if you're going to be installing trailer wiring like we are, I definitely recommend doing the trailer wiring now, because with the fascia off, the taillights out, it's a lot easier to route your wires and get all that done. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. And once I have that complete, we'll come back and get everything put back together. I ended up getting the wiring completely installed, and just to kind of give you a visual, you know, you can see why I recommend doing it now. Just so much easier to route everything, complete access to it, and not having to try to do all this from under the vehicle with a bunch of stuff in the way. So now that I got that wrapped up, I'll get someone to give me a hand. We'll get the fascia back on. We'll go ahead, get this reinstalled here the opposite way that we removed it. With the fascia all put back together, don't forget to plug in those electrical connectors that we disconnected as well. But if you're ready to use your hitch, you can remove that panel here, get full access to it. If not, leave the panel on until you're ready. But with that said, that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the Curt Trailer Hitch Receiver on our 2022 Jeep Grand Cherokee WL new body.